everyone, Alex Pino here from tinyhousetalk.com. Some of you may have also read my book on tiny house plans, and you may know me from elsewhere around the web. But today today's actually New Year's Eve for me right now as I do this, and the reason I'm doing this is because we ran a live webinar on Thursday, the 29th of December, and I tried my best to record it, but what happened was that it just completely failed. I couldn't get the audio to work, so I'm kind of just doing a recap. This isn't an actual replay of what we did, which was live. So you're not going to get the exact same experience, but you are going to get a more condensed version of it. So this is going to be quick, and you're just going to be able to kind of see what you missed in case you weren't able to get on, because there were a lot of you that tried to get on but couldn't because we were capped at 100 participants, and we had over 300 of you guys trying to get on there, and I really appreciate each and every one of you for trying to get on there. It was an honor to have all of you there and to see that there was so much interest in this. So again, thank you very much for being here, and we're just going to go ahead and get started so we can get you in and out of here as quick as possible. So basically the presentation here is how you can create more freedom in small spaces, more specifically tiny houses. And our guest host is Dan Luche. You're not going to be able to hear his voice today because, like I said, I didn't have the time to get him on here again, and this is not the actual live replay. But I'll do my best to fill you in on what happened, all right? So first of all, who am I? In case you're not familiar with me, at one point I was in a 1,400 square foot condo with a garage. It was all filled with stuff. A lot of you may already know this about me, so I'm not going to spend too much time on here. Then back in the year 2007, I started to realize that none of that around me was what I wanted. And this was because I was working at a job that was a good job. I was grateful to have it, but it wasn't my dream. It wasn't what I envisioned for myself throughout childhood. So I knew that I had to change certain things, and since I was tied to that job, I realized that all these things around me, all these material goods, were more of an anchor than a blessing. And so I started to sell them all off. I sold, my furniture. We got rid of an SUV so we can clear out that payment, that monthly payment that we were having to pay, and a bunch of other stuff. We pretty much minimized as much as we can. And then by 2009, I became a tiny house enthusiast. That's what I like to call it right now. And so today I'm a blogger, writer, publisher, and promoter for tiny house living, and of course also simple living. So thanks to this lifestyle change that I made, this simple living lifestyle, I was able to leave my full-time job in 2009. It happened pretty fast. I kind of made a leap. I took some risks. I was hurt financially a little bit because I did it, but I have to say that it has been well worth it. And just because now and for the last 2.5 years I've been able to build my own business instead of show up and hit the clock on someone else's, basically building somebody else's business. It's not what I wanted to do. It's not what I envisioned myself doing when I was younger, so I knew I had to make the change. And since I was young, I was willing to take the risk. So now I spend time on projects that I'm passionate about. That's why I blog about tiny houses and simple living, because I just think that I actually strongly believe that a small space, and especially a tiny house, can really create the foundation for your own dreams. So I really want to help make these little houses more widely available to everyday people, especially people fresh out of college or even fresh out of high school, and then people who can maybe retire now if they make the lifestyle change instead of waiting 20 years or 10 years or whatever it may be. And then also for people, if you're out there and you were like me, that you were working a job that you didn't like and you're passionate about something else and you want to make that career change, I think that that's also a really cool tool, a tiny house or any small space for that matter, to begin that journey. So today I have more freedom than I could have ever imagined, and I'm so grateful for that, and I'm so glad that I took the leap and made that change in my life. So a lot of you have asked, Alex, do you live in a tiny house? And I know I'm an enthusiast, I blog about it, I talk about it, but no, I don't live in one. I actually live in a 600 square foot apartment, and I'll tell you why. We love this small space. it is a little bit too much space. Honestly, I wish that we lived in more of a studio than an apartment of this size, because we just don't, I don't find myself needing all this space, but it was what we can find, and we're comfortable here now. And we really love the location because we're just 3 blocks from the beach. We can walk to a 7-Eleven and a downtown area that's actually really beautiful, filled with restaurants, and whenever there's holidays like today, we have fireworks that we can watch if we just walk 3 blocks. So it's a pretty amazing place to be, so we really, really like it, and I think that that's kind of why we haven't done it, because we do have the option to build one, but if we did, we'd most likely move to kind of to the woods in my area here, and it's around at least 10 miles from the beach, so I don't want to make that change, because then I'll have to drive a lot. I have to drive my car or ride too much bike. And I don't want to do that. I really like being able to just walk 5 minutes and enjoy nature and stuff like that. Even though the woods is nature too, but I think you get my drift. And we still plan on building our own tiny house within the next 2 years. But we are also debating on traveling instead, and just, you know, renting the smallest places that we can find around the world, and then that way we get to enjoy different parts of the world and experience that while we can. It's something that I'm working towards. I also kind of dream of a tiny house on the beach in Costa Rica. I would love to have that to go to for a few months out of the year as an inexpensive vacation home. And I wouldn't mind staying there long term and working out of there. I think it'd be an amazing experience. So anyway, let me show you, just for being here and watching this. I gave this away to the people that made it in to the live webinar. It's the latest book. I just put it together and published it literally the day of the webinar. I was on pressure because of that, and I was able to finish it, and I'm so happy it's done. It's called The Little Book of Tiny House Floor Plans, and it's a resource for tiny house floor plans. So what I wanted to do with it was pretty much give you that kind of focus, that visual of like, oh, let me see how I can live in one of these, and it just kind of feeds you those ideas. So I hope that you enjoy it. By the end of this video, you will have the link to where you can go ahead and download that. I'm going to give that to you, so stick with me here. It won't be long, I promise. And now, on the next slide, I'm going to give you a tour of that 600 square foot apartment that I live in, which I'm sitting in right now, that I'm talking about. I wanted to give you a tour, and please forgive the mess. I didn't take any professional shots. I didn't clean anything up before I took the pictures, so you'll see coats and things and books and my dog hanging around in the pictures. So it's kind of like if you just dropped in at any time of the day. So there it is. That's the living room and the front door. Pretty basic. We don't have have it. I wish it were more emptier. At one point, I really had it. When we first moved in, it was very, very empty, and then of course we accumulated more and more things, and then there's Christmas stuff too around there. But I just wanted to give you a look at it, and then here it is. Here's another similar angle, and you can see our pup Louie there, and my bicycle that I use pretty much every day. It's pretty cool. Okay, so that's pretty much it there, and then here's a shot of my niece and nephew sleeping on the couch with our dog Louie. And then on the next slide, you're going to get to see Andrea manning the kitchen. And then from there, like, okay, that's when you walk in. So as soon as you open the door, you walk through the living room. That's it. You know, kitchen is straightforward. We got lots of windows, which I love. And during sunset time on that window to the right, we get to kind of see the sky and all the colors during the sunset, because that's the west side, which faces towards the Gulf. We don't have a view of the Gulf, but if you walk for 5-10 minutes that way, you'll be at the Gulf, which is so cool. And then straight ahead to the left is that door you see there next to the painting on towards the left. That's the bathroom, and I'll show you in there. It's really messy in the picture, but I'm going to show it to you. But next you're going to get a close-up of the kitchen, which is just like a U. It's a pretty funny kitchen setup because we're usually both in there and you just bump into each other a lot, but it's kind of funny. I don't mind it. I think it's pretty cool, and it does make good use of space like this. It's like a U-shaped, and we have lots of cabinets for the small amount of space that there is there. So we really like it. And that window, you don't get to see it right now, but when that window's open, there's a cool plant there. Kind of a pretty view. It's nice when you're doing the dishes to not be looking at a wall. Instead, I can look outside the window. It's pretty cool. Next, you'll see our bedroom, and that's where we make use of the shelves that you can see on there. I put those in Actually, I moved those. I've had those shelves for the last 2 apartments we've had, and I just moved them right in. And so that's pretty much it. Next, you're going to see the bathroom. Real messy, again, but you get the idea. I really love our place. I think it's great. It was built in the 1950s. It used to be a motel, and then it got converted to to regular apartments. And the funny thing about it, the only thing that you haven't seen of my house is the room I'm sitting in right now, which I use as the office. And it's kind of weird because all of the apartments here have 2 doors. That's why I tell you that it used to be a motel. There's 2 door entrances to the little apartment. So if I look behind me right now, there's another door which I never use, but it's kind of interesting. And then I'm going to show you the beach. So that's why I'm not in a tiny house, because if I build one here, the codes here and the government here, the Naples city government, is really strict, so I wouldn't imagine a tiny house lasting too long here. I hardly ever see any RVs parked in any of the houses around this neighborhood, so I think it'd be highly unlikely, but I'd be willing to try it one day when I do get one of the houses built. I'll give it a shot and just see what happens. I think it'd be funny. So, okay, I gave you the tour. Now I'm going to tell you what you're going to learn here, because I do have some more slides which are just more knowledge-based on tiny houses. So we're going to just talk about, very briefly, we're not going to go into a lot of detail here, but we're going to talk about ways to build your own tiny house for 20 grand or less, the legal loopholes for living in a tiny house and building one, and then I'll talk about a few examples of people living in them happily, and of course the best places to park them so that you can live in them. And then again, just to mention again, some of this stuff, you're not going to get the full experience, because this is a recap, not a replay of the live webinar which we had just a couple days ago. And so you're going to get access to the book, the little book of tiny house floor plans, which I showed you the cover. I think you'll really like it. Some of the stuff in there you've probably already seen before, but it's still fun to check it out at a new angle, and have reworded a lot of the stuff. So I think you'll enjoy it, and it's a quick read. I think it's only 18 pages or so. We did have an awesome Q&A session with Dan Luche, and Dan, I want to give you a huge thank you for that, because I got so many emails of people who really appreciated that session. You gave them so much value, and you have so much knowledge to share there. It was incredible. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again pretty soon. That way you guys can enjoy that. But I am going to still give you a recap of the Q&A of whatever that I can remember of it. Okay, and then you're still going to get a special offer that Dan has on his plans, and then there's also a special announcement which you might already know about it, you might not sure, but I'm going to give you another chance to take advantage of it here at the end of the presentation, and it's completely optional. You don't have to buy anything. You can just enjoy this and get whatever value you can, because sometimes it's not the right time for you yet. But if it is, great. You have one thing is that there's a special offer that he has on his plans, and it does expire today as I'm saying this right now. So if you're watching this later after December 31st, 2011, unfortunately that one part, it will be unavailable. So you won't be able to take advantage of that if you're watching this after New Year's Eve 2011. Alright, so just wanted to make sure I threw that out there. Next, this is a shot of Dan's latest house. It's called Tiny Living. I drove up there and got to see it while it was in the progress that you see right there. He had basically just got the sheathing done and all of that, and it's great to see. And then what I wanted to do was show you, okay, so this is extreme small space living right here, which is awesome. I love it. I wish that this was more widely available everywhere. I wish that this was something that was easier for us to use and rent and live in, and my vision is to make that possible more and more, as much as I can with whatever powers that I have. And then next I wanted to show you the other extreme. And I live in Naples, Florida, and there is a lot of wealthy people here. So there are a lot of gigantic mansions here, and they're just ridiculous. And I mean, I can enjoy a big house. I can see how that can be enjoyed. You have a big family, because I actually have a big family. I have like so many cousins I can't count, and they're all within 100 miles of me. So if I announce a party, I can have 50 to 100 people show up if I really announce it that much. So I can definitely see how some people do enjoy a bigger house, but there are other ways to do it too. you know, because you can have a really nice outdoor area to enjoy parties as well with a small space. So there's different things, but I just wanted to throw it out there that, you know, I still think I'm not against big houses. I'm just against standardizing them. I'm against saying, okay, the minimum that you can build is 1,000 square feet. I think that's wrong. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear before we go on. But here's the extreme mansion, and I can't imagine all of the resources that it takes to build that. And I really look at some of these homes that the people are building around here, and they are hardly ever used. But they have to have a live-in maid, a live-in maintenance guy, a live-in cook. I mean, it's just incredible because it's basically like, if you own a house like that, you basically own your own hotel, which makes no revenue. So it's crazy. But anyway, let's get to the good stuff. This is a shot of me and Jay Schaefer when he came down to Orlando, Florida, and I was lucky enough to attend his workshop there. That was in 2010. Awesome experience. Jay is an amazing person. It was a real pleasure meeting him and learning from all that he had to say. It was a 2-day workshop. Some of you have been to them, and so you know what I'm talking about. Others, maybe you're thinking about going to them. I do highly recommend it just for the fact of all that you'll learn there. I mean, Jay's built a handful of these houses himself, so he's got a lot of knowledge to share. And lately, Tumbleweed is having other people, not just Jay himself, doing the workshops, so you can also sometimes get a chance to learn from Dee Williams. And I'm looking forward to meeting her someday soon. I think that'd be really great. But here's a shot of me helping out, the little help that I gave at Derek Diedrichson's micro building workshop in Boston, Massachusetts. That was a blast. I learned there a lot because of the hands-on experience. So I was able to, you know, a few months before learn from Jay, and then kind of actually put some stuff in action physically there. So that was a really, really cool and very fun learning experience, especially with all the people that were there. Really enjoyed it. And then last picture, and then we'll get to the info. This is the first time that I met Dan Luche was when his mother's house was completely finished. She had decorated. I mean, you can see how beautiful her home is there. She did such a great job of decorating it and personalizing it. And Dan did an excellent job of designing and building it. It's a very open house. You don't feel claustrophobic in there. Nothing is really hardly separated, so you can hang out in there. I mean, there was all of us that you see there. We were all hanging out there. Behind Dan, you can't see it right now, but there was food all over the countertop there. We were eating, hanging out, talking, laughing. Actually, you can, I have to give you guys a link if I remember. Let me write that down real quick. I'll give you guys a link at the end for those of you who haven't watched that video tour of that day. I mean, you can pretty much sit there with us just like if you were there and get the tour, the complete tour of the house with Dan's mom commenting on everything, all the little parts of her house. It was such a blast to meet them. They're such great people, and I just want to thank them again publicly for allowing me to come by and check out their house and showing me all of that. So let's get to the good stuff now. I think I wanted to list, first of all, the common problems or the most common reasons that stop people from getting or beginning to build their own tiny house. And I would say that the number one thing that stops people from even starting is building codes. Since you can't build a house basically less than 1,000 square feet in most developed areas, most people just stop right there. Even though that we have some pretty generous available loopholes to get around those, people are still scared. They think that for some reason it won't work and some officials will come by and just take their home away or make them move or whatever. And I'm finding more and more that that's not really the case. That when this happens, it's such a unique situation that a lot of the officials just shrug their shoulders. They don't even know what to do. I mean, it's such a strange thing. And so the loopholes work, in my experience from talking and interviewing with people who have built these. They work. But here are some other reasons. They have no building experience. Some of you out there want to do this, but you've never taken on a project. And if you haven't built a chair with wood, then how are you going to build a house? And I understand that. So there's no construction help out there. Some of you do have family members. A lot of people are fortunate enough to have, you know, a family that knows construction very well, and you can get that help, and that's awesome. Other things that stop are people have no idea where to park it, which really goes hand in hand with building codes. You don't know where to put it. You're like, okay, I want it. Okay, it's a great idea. It's going to save me money, etc. But I don't know where to put it. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have a better idea of how you can make that happen. And then also there's hardly any available financing for it. I mean, you have to get pretty creative to do that, and we're going to get into detail on that in a bit, so I won't continue there. And then of course there's a fear of all of the above going wrong, or any of the above going completely wrong, which I think is just a mistake to start in that frame of thinking. I mean, we all have our doubts, we all have our fears. That's definitely in all of us. But if you focus on them, then you're not gonna end up living in your tiny house. So you do have to just kind of, if you're gonna take on a project like this, you just have to take it kind of one step at a time. So why tiny? Why are people going tiny? And that's my nephew there. He's awesome. And it looks like he's winking in the picture, but he actually had something got in his eye, but the picture came out great, so I wanted to put it on there. But let's talk about why tiny houses. And that's less maintenance all around the board. You know, not a lot of cleaning. You won't have a lot of clothes. You won't have a lot of stuff. So basically it's just, all in all, less material anchoring you down to one location and just anchoring you down financially and energy wise, because I mean, a lot of us don't think about it. I think you and I, we realize it because you're here right now, so that tells me that you're a little bit smarter than some other people out there, you know, who just keep collecting. And I guess sometimes when we're doing that, and you know, you and I, we've done that in the past. Obviously I've collected a lot of stuff, and then I go to realize that, geez, every time I collect something, it's not only energy right now that's used on that stuff, but also in the future, like when I want to get rid of it. So it really makes me think twice about what comes into my life. And yeah, I think you get the picture. But so tiny houses really force you to a really maintenance-free lifestyle. You gain more freedom, and then it's sustainable for the environment. You know, since it's so small to build, it really has little effect on the earth. And then personal finance, you know that if it's smaller, you know, your bills are going to be less. It's cheap to build. You can pay it off really fast, giving you a mortgage-free lifestyle, which most people don't get to enjoy that until they're well into their 50s or 60s. So I can't imagine the good that will do to other humans in this world, to let them know that, hey, wait a second, there is another way. You don't have to finance a giant home for 30 years to live a happy life. You can do it for $20,000. Some people are doing it for $5,000 or $6,000, and then others are doing it for $40,000, $50,000. So there's a lot of options in there, but it's so cool to know that there is this other option. And if you take it, it can free your life for you to do whatever it is you want to do. And I think that's super powerful, and that's why I'm here today. So the last thing I want to talk about before I move on to the next slide is a feeling of being in control. And if for a second I can ask you to go back mentally when you were a kid, maybe when you were in college, or maybe when you were just a child and you had your own bedroom, or maybe just your own dorm, or you shared a bedroom or shared a dorm, and you just felt like, you know, this is easy. I can handle this. It isn't overwhelming. It feels like I got this. And I think that that's what a tiny house offers to you as an adult. And again, that's a very, very powerful feeling that can really put you in control of your own life. And if you take that step, then I imagine that the possibilities are endless. Forgive my dog. But yeah, the possibilities are endless. If you feel like you can control your direct environment, then your dreams can be yours, because you have that extra time. You can control your life. You have that extra time. You have the finances together. It basically builds a strong, solid foundation for the rest of your life. So, okay, I bet all of that sounds so good. And of course it does. It sounds amazing. But then comes the issues. Where do I put this house? If I build it, then where? Where do I put it, and where do I live in it? And for me, I came up with just a few here. You can get creative and you can come up with more, but I think the most common place that maybe most likely that you can find within 10 miles of where you're currently living right now is just backyards. But to find this, you really do have to talk to people. You have to either get on Craigslist and start emailing people and just letting them know about your idea and what you're trying to do. I think that there are a lot of opportunities, and there are a lot of people out there that you can find that will be mutually that will like to accept you into their backyard in exchange for something, whether that's money or whether it's an older person who needs help with certain chores, and you can provide that for them, and they'd be willing to have you stay there completely free in exchange for that. And there are a lot of people who are making it work in this way. They're doing the same concept in a farm. Maybe you can exchange labor for your space there, or maybe you can just simply pay them rent for a little extra plot of land. And a tiny house doesn't take up too much land. They're usually 8 by 20 or so at its biggest. And then other ideas are RV parks, but that can usually get kind of expensive. And then rural land, people are doing that too. You can have your house out in the woods, and many times you won't even have to put it on a trailer. If it's land without building codes, you can build it on a regular foundation, and you can save on the biggest cost, which is a trailer, usually the most expensive item for the tiny house. And then, of course, the last bullet I already told you is get creative. Think of other ways, because there are other ways to do it. Next slide that I want to talk about is quality. Quality over quantity. And I just recently experienced this. I know that it's kind of weird. I have a picture there of my underwear, of my boxers. And the reason I did it was because it was the most relevant thing that I recently did that helped me get rid of things where before I was having issues. See, I want to be a minimalist. I'm not one right now. I have too much clothes. There's no way I could fit everything I want in a backpack. And that's ultimately what I want. I want my belongings to fit in a backpack so that I am completely unanchored to life. And that would allow me to have this feeling of, wow, I can go anywhere. I just need to find a place I want to go, and I can go anywhere, and that would feel great. That is, to me, that would be ultimate freedom. But how? How do we do this? How do we get to the point that we happily just get rid of the huge amounts of clothes that we have? I mean, I'm sure if you look at your closet that you have a bunch of stuff in there that sometimes you use, you definitely use it, but you hardly use all of that. And most of the time we have a few favorites that we use on a consistent basis. And that's the same for me, but here's what I found out recently is that if I take the leap and kind of the risk of buying, for this example, I'm going to use a $25 pair of boxers, which I bought 2 of. So I spent $50 on 2 pairs of boxers. And maybe just a month ago I would have thought that was kind of ridiculous. But when I took them home and put them on and felt the quality that was there, I didn't want to put on my old pair of boxers anymore. I didn't even want to see them anymore. So what I'm saying here is that when you do go for quality, I think naturally minimalism follows. Because when you buy an expensive shirt that just feels so good, and not only does it feel so good and it's the most comfortable thing that you can wear, but it's also going to last you 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, literally almost a lifetime, versus rebuying boxers every 1 or 2 years like I have been doing my entire life. So now I expect to have those 2 pairs of boxers for at least 10 years. And so when you think about that, when you put that into perspective, then those boxers are cheaper than the cheap ones, if you think about it. So it's an upfront cost that costs more, but in the long run, it saves me money. But it doesn't only save me money, it saves me energy. I no longer now have to buy boxers every year or 2 years, and I no longer now have to find a way to get rid of them every 1 or 2 years. You get what I'm saying? And then you can take this and you can look at, let's talk about Jay Schaefer's houses, his tumbleweed houses, because the quality and the craftsmanship there is just, it's amazing. And I think it's the same thing. When you go from drywall to a tumbleweed house where the interior is like beautiful pine and wood and all this stuff, you feel that. I don't think you'd ever want to go to even a bigger house with nicer things in it, with lots of furniture or whatever. You would naturally just enjoy that tiny but extremely high quality house. And so then naturally the rest follows. You'll get rid of all that the stuff in your life that isn't quality, the things that you don't absolutely love. And that's what Jay Schaefer says. That, I don't know if it's Jay, it might be Thorol, but it's like, they say, have only in your house what you absolutely love. And don't quote me on that. I know I didn't say the exact words, but I think that you know what I'm saying. And so yeah, I believe very highly, and like Jay Schaefer says, that now I'm realizing finally that quality over quantity, all around, all over. And that's kind of becoming my mantra now. So I'm slowly, as I have the money, I'm getting those quality items that before I didn't felt I deserved or something, or I thought they were ridiculous. I'm not sure what my issue was, but now I'm just going for it because I've realized that it leads to me naturally just getting rid of all that extra crap in my life that's really holding me back. It's holding me back from traveling and from doing all these things that I want. So let's move on. I wanted to give you a quote from Jay Schaefer's book, The Small House Book. Again, this goes hand in hand with what I just talked about. Here's the quote. I'm going to read it. "The cost of materials could have been nearly halved if more standard materials were used. A more frugal decision would have been to skip the $1,000 custom-built Lancet window and install a $100 factory-built square one instead. But I was, and I remain, a sucker for beauty. I sunk $300 into every square foot. I succumbed to the urge to invest some of the money saved on quantity into quality. As a result, my current residence is both one of the cheapest houses around and the most expensive per square foot." Jay Schaefer, Small House Book. And then there's an example of one of his houses. That's the XS house. It's a 65 square foot version. Most of you are familiar with it. Very beautiful, inside and out. High quality craftsmanship. A beautiful home that I love to live in. In a heartbeat, I would go from my 600 square foot condo or apartment to that. Excuse me. And then here's a shot of Dan Luche's tiny living home, which he just recently completed. So let's talk real quick before we move on about financing a tiny house. Here are just some ideas to throw out there for you for that. You can save up the cash. That is the most recommended way. If you were to ask me, I'd tell you save up the cash. Don't use your cards, but you can if you want. It just depends on your own preferences and what you're comfortable with. People are doing it in all these different ways. They're using their credit cards and just doing it, even though they don't have the money, but they do have the credit. Some of us aren't so lucky. We don't have good credit anymore because of the last few years. So for some of us, that's our only option, is to save up the cash. Now, if that's you, then maybe you should consider finding reclaimed materials, because you can significantly reduce the cost of your home to build your home by taking the time to find reclaimed materials. But I do want to mention one thing that you might want to consider not doing, not skimping out on, is a trailer, because if you get a used trailer, I mean that's your foundation basically of the home. So you want to make sure that that's going to last you a long time. So that's something that me personally, I buy brand new, unless I just wasn't planning on towing it anywhere. And then again, take baby steps. This is a big project. It's a tiny house, but it's still a huge project to do that by yourself, or even if you have family members helping you. It's still a really big project, so take it one step at a time. Your first step a lot of times is just finding a building location and finding a trailer to start. And that's all you should worry about in the beginning. Then it's time to find the materials. Then it's fine. You got to take it one step at a time. And I've interviewed folks who've built these, and that's how they've successfully done it. They didn't allow themselves to get overwhelmed by the scope of the big project. Another idea is look around you. How big of a house are you currently living in right now? Where are you sitting right now? And if you sold your stuff, and maybe your house if you own one, and possibly your cars if you have extra, or you may find that you want to use a bicycle instead. I don't know, but just take a look at the lifestyle change that's required to live in a tiny house, and just notice, okay, how much money would I be left with when I do sell all this stuff? And is it enough to go ahead and start the project? Just something to consider, because that's been the case for lots of people. And the last idea is to go carless if you can. Some of us aren't in weather where that's the best idea, Other people do it anyway, in cold weather as well. I'm fortunate enough to be in Florida where doing that is not really much of an issue. I just have to worry about rain and heat during the summer. But going carless can save you, I think, up to probably 12 grand a year, because if you have even a paid off car, once in a while that thing breaks. I just had to pay a $900 car repair bill. My car's paid off, but that happens. It seems to happen every 6 months or so, and it's still. I mean, when you think about it, I guess I still have a car payment because there's usually a large repair bill every so often. And so let me see now if I can. I'm gonna pause for a moment and kind of go into, as much as I can, a recap of the Q&A with Dan Luche. So I'm gonna change my screen over to my web browser and just show you some of the questions that you can look at and where you can find them. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I already took longer than I thought giving you all this information, but hopefully you've gotten a lot of value out of it. So let's go ahead and give me a moment to just switch over my screen. Alrighty, so I want to lead you right now real quick over to facebook.com/tinyhousetalk. You don't have to go there right now if you don't want to, because I'm going to just show you. But if you want, you can pause this and you can head there right now and then hit play on the video again. Whatever you want to do, but it's facebook.com. You should see it on your screen real big there. facebook.com/tinyhousetalk. Once you get there, make sure that that you click right here where it says everyone. That way you can see everyone's comments. Because we had a lot of activity the day of the webinar. I had everyone come on here and I asked them to ask their questions on here. So I encourage you to, if you have questions, ask them on here. I'll do my best to answer them, and maybe the community will help as well to answer some of the things that I can't help with. Because we do have a lot of people here and resources so we can basically help each other. But right here, if you start scrolling down, you can just see all the comments. Some of these more recent ones are just thank you, which I appreciate everyone's kind comments on there. I'm so glad that all these people enjoyed the live event, and there are. I'm gonna get to the questions here. Just give me a moment. But you can see them here. Some of them you can see yourself. I tried to answer them here so that you guys can have like kind of a permanent answer here. But like Travis, for example, we talked about slide outs, and maybe you've thought about that too, having slide outs for the houses to make them, bigger, to make better use of space, kind of how RVs have those bump outs. But what we came to the conclusion is for the tiny house world, I mean, we like to keep things simple. We don't like the idea of extra maintenance and that kind of thing, and I totally agree with that. Why do a bump out if it's going to lead to more roof leaks, more mechanical and electrical work, more added weight, and just basically more issues? That's not what simple living is about. So I think that's why that we don't see the bump outs being used. So hopefully that answers that question. And then a lot of people have asked about if there's a tiny house community, and that's something that I don't know of any. I mean, there's rumors about a few of them out there, but I have yet to see something completely official, for a tiny house community. And I think in order for that to work, we need to have a set of rules and regulations, sort of like those annoying condo associations where there's all these rules and you have to be kind of approved and accepted into the community. I think that in order for a tiny house community to be pretty and all of that, and prevent it from becoming a trailer park, you'd have to have that. You'd have to have organization and basically an organizer that constantly works there and is ensuring that everything is up to a certain type of standard with constant meetings and things like that in order to make it work. Just like any other successful community, So, and then Christopher here asked about heating. And I really think that question is really just a personal preference, because there's a lot available and there's a lot of price points, a lot of price differentiation. A good suggestion is to look at boat heaters. A lot of those are expensive, but they're very small and pretty, luxurious. And because basically it's easy to heat up a tiny house. It's a small space. It's usually very well insulated. So it's basically just your choice. How small do you want it and how much money can you spend? That's really it, because you can really just use any old heater from Walmart or whatever, those inexpensive ones, and for a lot of folks that works just fine. And there's another one. This was a good question by Deke. If there's any special approach to dormer construction and bracing in terms of transporting on the highway, and I answered it there. Dan really explained this a lot better than I'm able to, but basically, Dan's designs are made for high winds. He built these in Florida. His family has a lot of experience in construction in Florida, so they already know how to build for high winds because we have hurricanes down here. So basically, you just want to you use hurricane straps, and that helps. And then everything is either screwed or nailed and glued, just to ensure that it is solid. And of course, the use of hurricane straps again. So hopefully that answers your question. I know that I can't give as much of an answer as someone as experienced as Dan, but yes, let's look around a little bit more. Oh yeah, for bedding, there's people out there that ask, well, what about how the tiny houses without sleeping lofts? Because the ladders are scary for a lot of folks who are older, and as you get older, you get more fragile, and you really do have to be very careful because you don't want to get hurt and break part of your bones that it's the only ones that you have. So for that, we suggest Murphy beds and futons. For Dan's mom's house, it's called Tiny Retirement. He used a futon for her. She has no sleeping loft. She just uses, the loft is very small and it's used for storage. So kind of her living space is just convertible. It serves as both living room, and then at night it turns into a bedroom. Travis asked about depreciation and recouping costs, and I believe that these houses really do hold their value. I mean, I imagine that as they age, when the trailer starts wearing out, if the house was moved a lot and things like that, of course it's going to depreciate at that point. But if you build a high quality home like Dan's homes and like Jay Schaefer's homes, I think that they're going to hold their value for quite a while. I mean, not to say that they're going to appreciate, but that also depends. If you figure a way to build the home on a foundation on a lot that allows it, then I could definitely see it appreciating in cost. But on preventing depreciation, take care of your home. It's a small space. You should be able to maintain it and maintain the wood and take proper care of it, and I would say that you will definitely prevent it from depreciating. We just answered that question. I didn't get to address condensation for the vents, but I'm pretty sure yes. The answer to that, Sarah, we didn't get to answer that, but yes, you do install vents for condensation and use AC or just open the windows up, things like that if you can. Let's see. Nikki's asking if these small houses on a foundation, if they're able to be financed. Most likely, yes, Nikki, if you find the right area where it's just legal to do so. Because like I said earlier, a lot of these homes are in areas where they don't want you building less than 1,000 square feet. So it still may be a challenge to find the right spot, but it always is a challenge to find the perfect home for you. So if you take your time, I think that yes, Nikki, you can probably finance that. Ryan Mitchell. Ryan, by the way, thanks again for joining us on there. If you were there on the live version, he was able to get on and say hello. That was really cool to have him on here. He asked about heating and cooling options for a tiny house and which are the best. And he was actually directing this question to Dan, and Dan suggested look at boat catalogs because they're great for heating solutions. And he built both homes in Florida, so he used in-wall AC units, and basically you can use the least expensive, smallest one because it's a tiny house. It's going to do just fine as long as you insulate it. And yep, you can also use a space heater. That's what he's going to do because it's an inexpensive option. It's not the prettiest, but it's cheap and it works because a well-insulated tiny house isn't hard to heat. Adam asked about how is sewage handled, and there's a few ways you can do it with tanks like an RV, and you can handle it that way where you have to take it somewhere and take care of it, or you can hook it up permanently, kind of like how they do. That's what Dan did at his mother's property. He hooked it up to the sewage permanently. So in his case, no tanks. It's a regular flush toilet and regular running water and all that. Lastly, you can do like Jay does, or Jay used to do, and D Williams. She just kind of fills up a water tank, so there's no plumbing really, and she uses a composting toilet. Another option is an incinerating toilet, more expensive. Rick asked about a build along, and actually I'm gonna mention a little bit more of that towards the end of this. Sarah asked about to Dan, do you use 110 or 220 power? Dan used 110 throughout the house, but here's why. He was able to do that because there's no washer dryer in the house, and he doesn't expect to have one. There's no traditional oven, so those things don't use those things. You're required to have 220. He didn't have to because he just uses a smaller version of those little ovens that you can get at the store, the small what are they called, convention oven, and of course a washer dryer. I mean, he just didn't put that in there. But even these days, there are washer dryers that don't require 220, the all-in-ones. Usually, you can just plug them into a regular outlet, which is pretty cool. So, and then if you had a tank water heater, the tank-based ones, that also requires 220. But he didn't use that. He used a tankless water heater, so he can run that on 110. So that hopefully answers your question on electric. Thanks, Sarah, for asking. Let's see. For Robert asked about in freezing cold areas, you just got to insulate very well and get windows with the high R values and all that, and you'll be just fine. Excuse me, guys. Andrea just got home, so I had to pause for a second. Okay, let's see. Bruce asked about using SIPs for walls and ceilings. Geez, I keep forgetting what that stands for. Somebody told me right here. They're called structurally insulated panels. That may or may not be correct. I don't remember, but they're basically like pre-manufactured walls and things. And I think there's someone out there. If you look up Sing tiny houses or Sing RVs, and that's SING, I believe, they use that method, and I think it's pretty cool. But I also just like traditionally doing it personally, but it's just a preference and what's available. In some areas, some of you may have that option available to you. For me in Florida, it's not. I haven't really seen that around here. So, and then Rick asked a really interesting question, which it was about aluminum trailers versus the regular ones, and basically we came to the conclusion here that it basically isn't worth the additional cost. They're not as strong, and Dan was able to really speak better about this. I can't remember right now off the top of my head exactly what he said, but I mean in Dan's view, it wasn't worth the additional cost. The benefits just weren't worth it, and in some cases there weren't enough benefits to really justify that extra cost to go with that. And I think it's a better option if you don't plan on moving the house a lot. Okay, Sarah asked a great question here. She said, I really want to build my little house out of reused, recycled materials for the environment, but really because that's what she can afford. So what components of the tiny house would absolutely need to be new? Dan said that. I think he put it perfectly, and I already said it before because of him. I learned this from him, and he said the trailer. It's the trailer. You don't want to skimp on the trailer because if you get a used old one, you're going to end up having to replace the bearings and maybe the axles and recover it because it might be rusted. I mean, there's so much work involved there, and that's your foundation. That is like the foundation of your home if you're building a tiny house on a trailer. So that's something that you don't want to skimp out on. Hopefully that answers your question. And I think we had a few more here that you guys can see. Andrew, man, I'm so sorry that you weren't able to get in there. I wish you would have, but hopefully we'll have you on. I'd love to have you as a guest host soon, and I'm sure everyone on here would love to have you too. But I think that's pretty much what I'm going to cover for the questions. Again, if you guys want, here is the link again to my Facebook page. You can go there and kind of explore everything that I just talked about right now. All right, and just bear with me for a second, and I'm going to show you the special offers from Dan, and the ebook that you can download from me for free. Alright, so I just want you guys, if you're interested, to head on over to tinyhouseoffer.com, just like you see on the screen there, okay? Let me put it a little bit bigger, as big as I can get it. Okay, so it's Tiny House Offer. There's no S on there. It's tinyhouseoffer.com. Okay, I'm going to just show you here. I'm going to give you a peek. You can go there yourself and you can learn about everything. But one thing I didn't get to show you here was Dan's slides. He had a quick presentation about his new service slash product, whatever you like to call it. It's called the Tiny House Build Along. And you know what? First off, I just want to thank you for checking this out. And for those of you who participated, and for those of you who tried to participate but couldn't get in, thank you so much. I'm so honored that all of you came and that there was so much interest in this. And I'm going to be really, really happy to do these again and again and again for you guys. So stick with me here. Dan announced a Tiny House Build Along. And what this is basically is a 6-month-long internet-based tiny house workshop where you basically get constant consultations from Dan as you need it. You get access to his personal phone number. So as you're building your house and you run into issues, you can actually just pick up the phone and call someone who's already done it, who's already been through this a few times. So I think that's really valuable for you guys out there who want to do this but don't have that confidence because you don't have that experience that some other people have. And in addition to that, you get access to a community that Dan's going to build and put together with a bunch of other tiny home builders, people like you who are doing the same exact thing, so you can kind of follow along. You can ask each other questions, and you can just pretty much do it all at your own pace with access to other people. And I think that that's huge and something that's not really, I mean, we have this available, like, you know, I always show you guys Jay Schaefer's workshops, but this is just a little different and something that is more long-term and can really guide you. So if you want to learn more about that, once you get to tinyhouseoffer.com, you just click the Learn More button here. It's huge, and you'll be guided over to Dan's site where you can reserve your spot for just $100 right now. And then at a later date, he'll charge you the rest. And if you have purchased Dan's plans before, go ahead and reserve your spot first. Then either contact me or Dan, either one, and what we'll do is we'll definitely change that price for you to adjust, because that price includes the price of plans in there. So if you've already bought Dan's Tiny Living or Tiny Retirement plans, you're going to have a discount on the Tiny House Build Along that he's offering. Okay, so that's important to note in case you are one of those people. Next thing, okay, now this is only valid if you're watching this on New Year's Eve, because that's when I'm making this video. Anytime after that, you can simply ignore this. But right now, if you're someone who hasn't purchased any of Dan's plans before, you'll get his construction guide completely for free if you use the discount codes that I provided for you here. And let me give those to you in case you're there right now. You can just see them on the page. Just go to tinyhouseoffer.com and you'll see them right there. So if you decide to go with Tiny Living, you can use the discount code right here. It's tinyhousetalktl, and you'll get a discount code there, which will take away the price of the construction guide when you buy those plans. Okay, so all you do is click the Add to Cart button, or just click on whether you want Tiny Retirement or Tiny Living. And once you get to Dan's site, Add to Cart, and you type the discount code in right here. So in this example, it's going to be Tiny House Talk TL. Okay, update cart, and there you go. You got a $30 discount. So that's how you do it. Now again, this is not going to work after New Year's Eve. So if it's 2012 right now as you're watching this, forget I even said it. Okay, thanks. And then finally, the free one. This is my latest book, The Little Book of Tiny House Floor Plans. Completely 100% free download as a gift for participating. I'm only going to have this up here for so long. Okay, after a while, this is not going to be an instant download like it is right now, but it basically showcases the floor plans that are available in the marketplace for tiny house plans. I just released this. It's 100% free. You're one of the first people to get it. If you click the download button like that, you're instantly going to download it. See? So I'm going to click open and give you a quick preview of what you'll get. Whoops, what happened? So there it is. and you can just see a preview. There's the front cover and the outline, so it just basically shows you what I'm going to go over, the intro. So that's pretty much all I'll show you for now. I don't want to take up much more of your time. And then below this is Dan's construction guide. It is, guys, the most detailed tiny house construction guide that's out there today, because it's the only one that actually goes into step-by-step detail on not only everything, but it also includes the electrical stuff and the plumbing information, because Dan is actually really good at that stuff. So if you need help with those two things, this is the guide that you want to have. It's 64 pages of step-by-step info. There's more than 100 color photos in there, and it costs just 34 bucks. You can download it instantly. This is something that's available always. So if you click on the download button, you're going to be guided to Dan's site again, where you'll have to actually add it to cart and check out there. After you do that, you're going to get an instant download. It's an ebook, so you'll have it today if you decide to order it. It's only 34 bucks. Well worth it. You can see the table of contents right here on Dan's site when you click through. And then finally, if you don't receive my emails right now, at the bottom, just enter your name. That's optional. You don't have to, but leave me with your email and click the Join Now button. And then anytime that a webinar comes up that I'm doing, or I come up with a free ebook to give away, or maybe there's a big discount that's only available for a few days, and you don't want to miss out on it, get on that list, because that's how you'll stay in touch with the latest on everything that's going on. And that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Tell your friends, spread this video around to anyone that you know who's interested in tiny houses and simple living, and I'll be glad to see you on the next webinar live. Okay, so again, it's tinyhouseoffer.com, and you can also find me at tinyhousetalk.com. Alright, so thanks again everyone for watching. I really appreciate you. Have a happy new year, and see you in 2012.